My simple way to learn English, graded reader, improve your English. Hello, my name is Perulski. I want to tell you my story. It is not a famous story. It is not a story about becoming rich or traveling around the world. It is the story of how I learned English. If you are learning English too, I hope my story gives you confidence. Maybe my simple way can help you. A few years ago, English was one of the hardest things in my life. Every time I opened a book, I saw hundreds of words I did not understand. Every time I watched an English video, the speaker talked too fast. I could hear the words, but I could not understand the meaning. After a few minutes, I became tired. Sometimes I even became frustrated. I asked myself, why is English so difficult? Many people told me the same thing. You need to study more grammar. You need to memorize thousands of words. You need to buy expensive courses. So I tried. I bought grammar books. I downloaded vocabulary lists. I wrote hundreds of words in a notebook. Every evening, I sat at my desk for 2 hours. I memorized words. I completed grammar exercises. I watched lessons about tenses. But something was missing. After 3 months, I knew many grammar rules, yet I still could not speak. If someone asked me a simple question, my mind became empty. I knew the rules, but I could not use them. One Saturday afternoon, I visited my uncle. He was sitting outside his house, drinking tea and reading a newspaper. He looked at me and smiled. "You look worried." "I am," I replied. "I study English every day, but I still cannot speak." He folded his newspaper and asked me a question. "When you learned your first language, did you study grammar first?" I laughed. "No." "Did your parents make you memorize hundreds of words?" "No." "So how did you learn?" I became quiet. I thought about my childhood. I remembered listening to my parents every day. I remembered hearing the same words again and again. I remembered making many mistakes. Nobody became angry. Nobody gave me grammar tests. People simply talked to me. Little by little, I understood more. Little by little, I started speaking. My uncle smiled. Language is learned by using it, not by fearing it. That sentence changed everything. The next morning, I made a decision. I stopped chasing difficult English. Instead, I looked for easy English. I found a short graded reader online. The first chapter was very simple. The sentences were short. The vocabulary was easy. There were no difficult expressions. At first, I thought it was too easy, but I kept reading. For the first time, I finished an entire chapter without translating every sentence. That small success made me happy. The next day, I read the same chapter again. It was even easier. The third day, I read it once more. This time, I noticed something surprising. I was no longer translating every word into my own language. I was understanding the story directly in English. It felt amazing. From that day, I created a simple routine. Every morning, I woke up 30 minutes earlier. I made a cup of coffee. I sat near my window. The air was fresh. The street was quiet. The sun slowly filled the room with light. I opened my English book. I read slowly. I never rushed. When I found a new word, I did not stop immediately. First, I guessed the meaning from the story. Sometimes I guessed correctly. Sometimes I guessed wrongly. Either way, I continued reading. Only after finishing the chapter did I check the meaning. I discovered that many words became clear because of the story itself. That surprised me. One evening, my friend David came to visit. He looked at the small book on my table. "What are you reading?" "An English story." He picked it up. "This looks like a children's book." "It is." He laughed. "Why don't you read something more difficult?" I smiled. "Because I want to understand everything." He looked confused. "But difficult books teach more words." "Maybe. But easy books teach confidence." He sat beside me. "What do you mean?" I opened the first page. "Read this." He read one paragraph, then another. Within 5 minutes, he finished the whole chapter. He looked surprised. "I understood almost everything." "Exactly. When you understand, you enjoy reading. When you enjoy reading, you keep reading. When you keep reading, your English grows naturally." David nodded slowly. "I've never thought about it that way." That night, we read together for almost 1 hour. Sometimes I read, sometimes David read. Whenever one of us made a mistake, we simply corrected it and continued. There was no pressure, there was no embarrassment, only practice. Before leaving, David smiled. "I think I will buy a graded reader too." I smiled back. "It is one of the best decisions you can make." The following weekend, I went to a small bookstore. The owner recognized me immediately. "Back again?" "Yes." "I finished my first book." He smiled proudly. "That was fast." I enjoyed every page. He walked to another shelf. "I have something a little harder." He handed me another graded reader. This one had longer chapters. The vocabulary was slightly more difficult, but it still felt comfortable. I bought it without thinking twice. As I walked home, I realized something. For the first time in my life, I was excited to read in English. I was no longer studying English. I was living in English. Every evening after work, I returned home with my backpack and my English book. I did not turn on the television. I did not spend hours scrolling through my phone. Instead, I sat in my favorite chair, opened my book, and read one chapter. Some chapters took only 15 minutes. Others took 20. I never tried to finish the whole book in one day. I wanted to enjoy the journey. As the days passed, I noticed something interesting. Words that were once difficult became familiar. I no longer needed a dictionary for simple conversations. I could recognize many expressions without thinking. One Monday morning, I stopped at a small cafe before going to work. The cafe was quiet. Soft music played in the background. Only a few people were sitting inside. I ordered a cup of coffee and found a seat near the window. While I was reading my English book, a young man walked over to my table. "Excuse me," he said. "Are you learning English?" "Yes," I replied. He smiled. "So am I." He pointed at my book. "I've read that one." "Really?" "Yes. It helped me a lot." His name was Lucas. We talked for almost 20 minutes. Our conversation was simple. Sometimes we searched for words, sometimes we paused to think, but we kept speaking English. When we finished, Lucas said something I will never forget. "You don't become fluent by waiting. You become fluent by speaking." Those words stayed with me all day. That evening, I made another change. Every night, I stood in front of my bedroom mirror for 10 minutes. I looked at myself and spoke only English. At first, it felt strange. I talked about my day. Today, I woke up early, I went to work, I met my friend, I drank coffee, I read my book. The sentences were simple, but every day they became smoother. After 1 week, I noticed I was speaking with fewer pauses. After 2 weeks, I no longer felt embarrassed. The mirror became my first English conversation partner. One afternoon, my younger sister entered my room while I was practicing. She looked surprised. "Who are you talking to?" I laughed. "Myself." She laughed too. "Isn't that funny?" "Maybe, but it works." She sat beside me. "Can I listen?" "Of course." I spoke for another 5 minutes. When I finished, she smiled. "Your English sounds much better." "Thank you." "What changed?" "I stopped trying to be perfect. I just practice every day." She thought for a moment. "I want to learn English too." I handed her one of my books. "Start here." She opened the first page. "This looks easy." It is. And that's the secret. The next Saturday, we went to the public library together. It was my first visit. The library was larger than I expected. Rows of books filled the room. Some people were reading quietly, others were studying. The librarian welcomed us with a smile. "Can I help you?" "Yes," I said. "We are looking for easy English books." She walked to a special section. "There are graded readers here." I looked at the shelves with excitement. There were books about travel, books about friendship, books about adventure, books about daily life. I borrowed 2 books. My sister borrowed one. As we walked home, she smiled. "I can't wait to read mine." Neither can I. That evening, we sat together in the living room. Each of us read quietly. Sometimes we smiled at funny parts. Sometimes we asked each other simple questions. What does this word mean? What happened in your story? Do you like this character? Without realizing it, we were practicing English together. Weeks turned into months. Reading became part of my daily life. Speaking English became normal. Listening became easier. Then one morning, something happened that surprised me. I was watching an English video online. Normally, I needed subtitles. This time, I forgot to turn them on. 5 minutes passed, then 10. Suddenly, I realized something. I was understanding almost everything. I smiled without even noticing. It felt like a door had finally opened. Later that day, I called Lucas. "I have good news." "What happened?" "I watched an English video without subtitles." He laughed. "Congratulations. How did you feel?" "I didn't even notice until the video was almost finished." That's the best feeling. It means your brain is beginning to think in English. That night, I lay in bed thinking about my journey. I remembered the days when every sentence felt impossible. I remembered closing books because they were too difficult. I remembered feeling frustrated. Now those days seemed far away. I realized I had never found a magic trick. There was no secret app, no expensive course, no shortcut, only simple habits repeated every single day. Read a little, listen a little, speak a little. Repeat tomorrow. That simple routine changed my English more than anything else ever had. And the best part was that I was no longer afraid of learning. I was enjoying it. For the first time, English no longer felt like a subject. It felt like a friend waiting to tell me another story. A few days later, I received a message from Lucas. "Are you free this afternoon?" I replied. "Yes." "Why?" "I found an English conversation club." My heart started beating faster. A conversation club? Yes, people meet every Saturday to practice speaking. I stared at the message for a few seconds. Part of me felt excited, another part felt nervous. What if my English isn't good enough? I asked. Lucas replied almost immediately. That's exactly why we should go. That afternoon, we met outside the community center. People of different ages were arriving. Some looked confident, others looked just as nervous as I felt. Lucas smiled. Ready? I took a deep breath. I think so. We walked inside together. A friendly woman welcomed us. Hello, my name is Sarah. Welcome to our English Conversation Club. She gave each of us a name tag. I wrote my name, Perolsky. Sarah clapped her hands. Today we are not here to study grammar. Everyone smiled. We are here to communicate. Don't worry about mistakes. Just speak. Hearing those words made me feel more comfortable. We sat in small groups. There were 4 people at my table. Lucas, a university student named Emma, a businessman named Ahmed, and me. Sarah gave us our first question. What is your favorite place to relax? Emma spoke first. I like the beach because it is peaceful. Ahmed smiled. I prefer my garden. I enjoy growing flowers. Lucas said, I like the football field. Playing football helps me forget my problems. Then everyone looked at me. I smiled nervously. My favorite place is my room. Everyone laughed kindly. Why? Emma asked. Because that is where I read my English books. Ahmed nodded. That is a very good reason. For the next hour, we talked about many simple topics: our favorite food, our hobbies, music, travel, family. Sometimes I forgot a word. Instead of stopping, I explained it another way. If I forgot the word umbrella, I said, the thing we use when it rains. Everyone understood. That taught me an important lesson. You do not need perfect English to communicate. You only need courage. After the meeting, Sarah walked over to me. You spoke very well today. I smiled. I made many mistakes. So did everyone else, she laughed. The goal is communication, not perfection. Those words stayed with me all week. From that day, I stopped being afraid of mistakes. Mistakes became my teachers. Every mistake showed me something new. Every correction made me stronger. My confidence grew little by little. One evening while walking home, I noticed something unusual. I was thinking in English. Not every thought, but many simple ones. I looked at the sky. The sunset is beautiful. I looked at the trees. The wind is strong today. I saw a child riding a bicycle. He looks happy. I stopped walking for a moment. I smiled. Months earlier, I had translated everything into my first language. Now, English was becoming natural. It happened so slowly that I almost did not notice. The next morning, I started a new habit. Whenever I walked somewhere, I described everything around me in English. I see a blue car. The woman is carrying a bag. 2 children are playing football. The shop is open. The weather is warm today. Nobody knew I was practicing. Sometimes I whispered. Sometimes I only thought the sentences. Every walk became an English lesson. Soon, I realized something surprising. Learning English was no longer something I did. It had become part of who I was. I listened in English. I read in English. I thought in English. I even dreamed in English sometimes. One night, I woke up smiling. I had dreamed that I was talking with people from different countries. We were laughing together. Speaking English felt completely natural. That morning, I knew I had changed. Not because my English was perfect, but because I was no longer afraid to use it. Looking back, I understand why my simple method worked. I chose stories instead of complicated textbooks. I listened every day. I read every day. I spoke every day. I repeated what I heard. I enjoyed the process. Most importantly, I never gave up. If you are learning English today, remember this. You do not have to know every word. You do not have to speak perfectly. You do not have to finish the biggest grammar book. Just begin. Read one page. Learn one new sentence. Listen to one short story. Speak for 5 minutes. Tomorrow, do it again. Small steps become long journeys. One sentence becomes one conversation. One conversation becomes confidence. And one day, without realizing it, you will smile because English is no longer something you study. It is simply another language you use to share your thoughts, your dreams, and your story with the world. Thank you for listening to my story. Now it is time to write your own.